Greetings, salutations, and welcome to League Unlock. Eric and Mark joining you guys as always. And the regular season behind us in the LCS. The LEC announced their all-pro team, which was a little bit different than what we had put up. You know, Yankos on that first team. But we're not talking to you today. We're talking about North America. Time to preview who were the standout performers and deserving of the all-pro nods this year. And we'll take a look at some of the top MVP nominees later on.
Yep, time to break out some of that champagne, or hey, if you're underage, some of that sparkling apple juice here to enjoy. And you know, I gotta say, actually, you know what? Champagne, way overrated. I might join in on the kids' table, have some of this sparkling apple juice here. Time for the celebrations, time for some awards here, LCS stuff.
I just want the apple juice. Doesn't need to be sparkling, you know? Ooh. Just straight up normal apple juice. It actually tastes terrible. Don't ever drink apple juice. Your parents lied to you all through your youth. But all pro teams in North America, top five, the five best at each position. And you know the theme for these things is usually the best teams have the most players represented because they have the best record. And of course, that theme continues. But actually, the first team this year, or at least who we think should be on that first team, we got a lot of diversity. Four different teams represented this year, what we're thinking, starting with Licorice in that top lane. I don't think you can argue he was the best performing top laner this split.
Overall, it has to be Licorice in the top side for your pick here. The Cloud9 top laner in the sophomore season here. We had talked about thinking, oh, are we going to see that sophomore slump that some guys have? You know, there's some more footage out there. People can better prepare and attack you in your matchups. Not the case. Licorice was that rock on the top side for Cloud9. And say what you will about the laning phase, whatever you want. When it comes down to team fights with Licorice, there's just something that he has that other top laners in this region don't seem to have, and it's just this unbelievable ability to find the right flank and swing team fights massively in the favor of Cloud9.
And we've seen him play an insane amount of different champions and different styles of champions, and he's excelled in pretty much any kind that C9 has put them in. Jungle spot, we got Santorin, and people might be a little surprised, but this guy needs to stop going under the radar. He had the best early game numbers and best early game performance of any of the junglers in the LCS, and is one of the main reasons FlyQuest had some of the best gold advantages early on.
When you talk about junglers here in this North American region, yes, we have some flashy names. People want to be talking about, hey, you got Rush back here. You got the old guard and Smithy. Well, let's finally put this respect onto Santorin, has come over here. The SK games, those days are over. We're here now with FlyQuest, and hey, feels pretty good getting a FlyQuest member here into this top level team of LCS players, and Santorin has to be the guy. He absolutely deserves it. Go ahead, look at the numbers. This man is right up there in the top three for every important jungle category.
And Wild Turtle has had a fantastic split for FlyQuest, but the MVP for their squad so far has been Santorin, getting these huge early leads for them, and pretty much he's got some of the highest kill participation. Anything that's happening for this squad is going through him, which is the polar opposite of what people were talking about when he was invisible on H2K. Well, he is very visible, and he seems to be invincible at times on this FlyQuest squad.
Yeah, definitely looking really good on this squad. Wish him all the best. Get well soon, Mr. Santorin. We need to see you at full health for the playoffs.
Yeah, they definitely want him to be feeling okay. Mid lane, you got Bjergsen. I don't know if he's ever had a first-team All-Pro. I don't think so here in the LCS, but he has been super consistent for TSM, and I mean, you might say, yeah, he just plays Lissandra a bunch, so why is that impressive? But he has still been solid in the laning phase. He's fully involved with his team, and those first blood numbers, they like running it through the mid lane.
Yeah, you definitely have to say that he's been working really well, and we talk about the type of synergy that a jungler wants to build with your top laner. Well, I think that Acadian and Bjergsen on TSM here, the jungler, I think that has really developed into a nice synergy here. They really know how to work around each other's preferences here during that early part of the laning phase to extend out into getting control over the scuttle crabs and whatnot, which then eventually they find ways to snowball into picking up earlier ganks and bigger advantages. Bjergsen has been on point all season for TSM, and with their big push has played a big role in how they picked up the wins.
And as you've seen his career develop, you've seen him able to play the supportive Zillion champions, or he can still play those assassins like Akali. He's had a great split so far. The bottom lane, it's Liquid. It's Doublelift, Bjergsen's old buddy and pal, and Core JJ. And yes, they've lost 3 games in a row, have Liquid, but they were still the best bot lane, the most dominant bottom lane throughout the entirety of the regular season.
Most dominant and most consistent, because if you are looking at the good bottom lanes that we have had here in North America, you would talk about the likes of Sven and Smoothie, Sneaky and Zazel, but you gotta give the nod here to Core JJ and Doublelift. The consistency and dominance that they've shown throughout the entirety of the split has been fantastic. Really kind of only the last 2 weeks, I would say, have been some poor performances. Mainly, I think that Doublelift hasn't kept up his end of the bargain here of being the best bottom lane in North America. But Core JJ, what can you say? This has been the absolute dream of having an import come into North America, have a massive impact for your team, and be playing well right from the get-go. Core JJ, the dream import here for North America.
Yeah, and you would think when the Vayne pick is popping off, this should be when Doublelift is fully going back to his roots of 1v9ing, but a little bit too much Vayne spotting the last couple weeks.
Way too much Vayne spotting, not enough damage coming out, and hey, it's just not working for TL. They're in that slump, and this is not the pick to get them out of it.
Yeah, but if they're going to get out of this slump, come around the playoffs, it's going to be playing around that bottom lane. That's been their main win condition ever since Doublelift joined Team Liquid, really. And now with an even stronger support in Core JJ, you know those guys are going to be the main focal point in the semifinals this split. Coming up after the break, who else makes up the rest of the all-pro squads in the second and third teams? And oh my goodness, can the Golden Guardians get a member on there? We're back. It's League Unlock. Mark and Eric here with you guys, looking ahead to what we think will make up the all-pro teams here in North America. We went through the first team, time for those second and third squads. And there were 4 different teams on that first team all-pro one, but the second team, it's only 3. There's still 3. There's still some diversity, but you know the top 3 are going to be heavily represented because they were such a cut above the rest of the competition, and that's exactly the case with the second team.
Yeah, there was certainly that instance here in North America where those top 3 teams were really cut above here, the rest of this clump that we've had in the middle part of North America. But when you look at the second all-team pro, you finally start to get some of these Cloud9 boys here up here and finally get some respect that they deserve with Svenskeren, Jensen. Jensen. Whoa! I fell for it.
2018.
Everyone is seeing that Jensen and thinking Cloud9, but then you got Zazel. Yeah, Zazel picking up that Cloud9 at the end. But let's start talking about Jensen, right? Because yes, not Cloud9 Jensen. This is TL Jensen here. And I don't think that we've seen the best of Jensen exactly yet. You've seen a very controlled game from him, and it's allowed Team Liquid to really excel in a lot of areas of how they want to play the map.
And I know he wanted to leave Cloud9 because he wanted to take a different approach to the game, get a little bit more serious, and maybe get more resources going his way, but that's not how Liquid works. The resources, or the majority of them, are going to Doublelift. He's been more of a supportive role than we've seen him in past years on Cloud9, but I mean, the KDA, this guy hardly ever dies. I know he's playing a lot of Orianna and Syndra, but since when did Syndra become a supportive champion that you can knock someone for playing?
Yeah, I think the only time that you really could look back this entire split and look to where Jensen has maybe lost lane or been pressured too much in that situation, and I think maybe once to Bjergsen and maybe once to Niski is all you can really fault him for in his individual performance in lane. Jensen has been pretty darn clean this entire spring split.
Yeah, deserving of that second team nod. Maybe the biggest surprise or biggest question mark coming into the season, and even now on that second team, is Broken Blade in the top lane for TSM. The guy from Turkey that everyone was kind of like, I don't know, this guy going on TSM from playing on Royal Bandits, and the numbers don't do justice how important he has been for this squad. He is just not afraid to pull the trigger on whatever champion he's playing. He gave it to Liquid in 2
did he ever. He gave
matchups.
It to them in Champ Select even,
Oh
man.
my God, both times. He's been an absolute animal, and maybe the laning numbers aren't there, but him and Acadian have been huge. And if there was if you take into account off the Rift stuff for MVP, you'd talk to Broken Blade just for changing the entire atmosphere on TSM.
Oh yeah, this is the spark plug here for Team Solo Mid. BB has absolutely been the heart and soul for this squad early on in the spring split, getting it going. And hey, he has been a massive difference maker on the top side in a lot of those matchups for Team Solo Mid, really helping them out. And another player that's been massive for Team Solo Mid, Sven. Sven's pride, you can see it chanting out those TSM chants with the crowd at the end of the TL series. Man is proud to be a member of Team Solo Mid, and he is proud to be that carry for them down on that bottom side. He's done his work. He's been very consistent from I think maybe after the first 3-4 weeks of the regular season here. He has been incredibly consistent at this point for Team Solo Mid and has been someone that they can absolutely rely on to be able to do the damage when they need it.
Yeah, and I think you're right, he has thrived in TSM actually being good and having that fan base actually be positive towards them, which was something that was not very often in 2018. No. We know he can play. This guy spams so much solo queue, whatever AD carry or handful of AD carries are the strongest, you know he's going to be more than serviceable on those champions just because he's playing this game so damn much. And yeah, him and Smoothie have been so consistent in that bottom lane. And when it comes to the team fights, it has been him popping off and carrying TSM in a lot of them.
Oh, I love it, man. They even had one of those moments where they had the perfect game going, and then Acadian dies, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, guys. And Sven says, didn't ask. Didn't want any excuses. Don't care. And that's the TSM attitude. You got to get performances, no excuses. And right now, there are no excuses for this squad. They're putting up the performance.
And then you also saw Sven Skjern and Zazel, two key members of Cloud9, which means Sven broken up from his partner in the bottom lane. But don't worry, because the third team All-Pro squad, his boy Smoothie obviously made the cut. I don't think you can argue. I think supports might have been the most clear cut of all the roles when it comes to top three. It had to be Core JJ first, and you could swap Zazel or Smoothie in any order, but we have him here on the third team, along with Zazel's partner, Sneaky. That bottom lane makes up the All-Pro squad. And then look at that, Mark. 2 Golden Guardians members. 2 of them.
Heyo, Golden Guardians turning golden into these all-pro squads finally. This is no longer the Golden Guardians that picks up, hey, we're going to just pick up last place for you guys. No one else worry about it. We'll take the brunt of it. Not anymore.
We're going to playoffs.
They're going to playoffs, and they're going into the all-pro squad here with Hanser and Froggen. Hanser really did bring back a lot of the performances that people would know with his name here in North America and the performances in that top side. But when you look here on where Golden Guardians is getting their most value here, it has to be Froggen. Froggen is the guy that is getting a lot of things going for this GGS squad, and hey, feeling pretty darn good looking at them in playoffs finally.
Yeah, the solo laners both, I think, have been the key for Golden Guardians so far. Hanser looked way more like we were accustomed to seeing him on TSM. He's got some of the most dominant laning numbers among all top laners, and he's been playing a lot more carries because, quite frankly, I think the Guardians need a carry top laner. I don't know if Deathly is quite there with some of these other top 3, 4 AD carries that we've already talked about, where he's going to be able to completely take over a game. So I think Froggen and Hanser have been the main go-to guys when it comes to setting up their team for success, especially because a lot of the early game for contracts, there's a lot of dying that's going on with him and Ole kind of roaming around and things not working out so well. So Hanser definitely had a bounce-back season for them, and Froggen in that mid lane, I mean, he was a big question mark. You didn't know. It's been a full year since he's played competitively, save for that EU Masters run with Origin. And I think the first maybe 2, maybe even 3 weeks were a little bit rocky. I don't think the meta was great for him. And then he just finally said, you know what, screw the meta. I'll just play Karthus mid. What season is it? Season 1? Give me a Navia, give me Karthus. We're fine.
That's the best thing here. You are right. This was somewhat of a risky pickup with the Golden Guardians, knowing if it would really, if it worked out, it was going to work out to the top level here of mid laners in North America. But if it flopped, it was going to be a flop. And what you had here now is the performance from Froggen. And you're right, he was trying to be a little bit too meta these first week or two here, and it didn't work with the Golden Guardian squad. But when he said, you know what, screw this. The game is a little bit more open right now. It doesn't have to be this hardcore meta-only slave fest in the middle lane here. We can play what we want. I can play the champions that I'm good at. And my skill on these champions that I'm good at that makes up the difference here in the meta. Froggen picking anything he wants and winning on it with Golden Guardians.
And he is fully involved in all their fights, either getting kills or assists. Everything plays through him in that mid lane. A couple of snubs that didn't make this any of the All-Pro squads, by the way. Niski on Cloud9, I think, is right behind Froggen.
Oh, yeah, he's real
probably
close.
You could argue either way. And also, Wild Turtle has had an incredible split so far, but it's hard to put him above Sneaky Sven and Doublelift because that is a stacked top 3.
That's the really unfortunate thing here. I think that you are right about Niski right behind Froggen. That's a hard one because Niski's done a lot of great work, especially coming into the shoes of having to replace Jensen on Cloud9. He's really made it easy for the fan base to fall in love with him there in that mid lane role. And I think that you are right when you talk about Wild Turtle. Unfortunately, just behind the likes of Doublelift, Sven, and Sneaky. And I mean just right behind him. It's very close. Maybe 1 or 2 more Jinx games where Turtle's popping off. We might find him here on the All-Pro squad. But right now, honorable mention to the man.
Yeah, and JJ as well has been great with Turtle in that bottom lane. But again, the top 3 for the bot lanes is just too stacked for these guys to crack it. But if we had a 4th team All-Pro, it'd be mostly FlyQuest guys, I imagine. Another quick shout-out to Viper, who probably gets Rookie of the Split this year because Broken Blade shouldn't qualify. But the FlyQuest has had a great split overall.